and 10.
Yeah.
Wait till.
I don't, he only has one thing.
So
Even if nobody else.
Yes,
is
no,
going
no,
first,
no,
you still have to wait till you're posted. I have a posted sheet. I don't know why you
I got
get.
one that said
Because
March
personnel
12th.
can kick off at 7:08.
No, no.
I don't.
Hi, if it's okay, we'll have.
I didn't know who it was.
7:08, we'll have Peter kick it off, if that's all right.
It's fine.
Your first key.
You're up, Pete.
I'm up.
You're up.
How come you do that to me when I'm not expecting?
Well, you're stable.
Keeps you young.
Okay, if I win this, you got any questions, we'll look at them next.
Do you have it right here? Do you need
Huh?
it? You got everything you need?
Yeah.
Not during committee meetings, Mr. Blue.
No, because he can't start till 7:08. His is short, so we'll get him done, and then we'll bring the guests in. I have it on, oh, wait, stand by. I have the pages.
You want me to get back in my seat, Heather?
Get it.
You bounce.
You didn't get one.
Good, exercise is good.
Actually, it's Public Works up first.
Great,
Peter,
perfect.
you can go back to your spot. Sorry about that. I had to run real, sorry, apologies.
Can you, excuse me,
Yes, you know, I got it.
could you please just tell me, like, so public work, I don't have one.
That's okay, so it's
So
Public Works at 7 o'clock, Personnel and Human Services at 7:01.
Okay,
So if
you're
you
all
would like
set. You
him
can
to go first,
Please,
that's
go
fine.
ahead of me.
I can.
Yes, you can.
You can, it's 7:01.
All right. Well, it's now 7:02, and I am calling the Personnel and Human Services Committee to order. So, from the docket of March 26th, 2019, I'm going to be entertaining a motion. The Personnel and Human Services Committee, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Eleanor Parento, 1355 West Street, Attleboro, to fill an expired term in the Council of Substance Abuse Prevention. The term will expire February 2022. Would I?
Does he have a second?
We have a second?
Either, go ahead.
I'm first trying to find it on the doc, on his, okay, all right, thank you.
You
Second.
need a second?
Please.
Second.
Thank you very much. And before we go any further, I would like to introduce Eleanor. And if you would please come up and share with us your name, your address, and thank you so much for coming.
Good evening. My name is Eleanor Parento. I am 28 years old. I've been a resident of Attleboro for the past 24 years. I've experienced both on a personal level, the way drug and alcohol abuse can affect a community. For my line of work, I work at Target as a loss prevention specialist, and oftentimes the people that I do apprehend for shoplifting, more often than not, they do have abuse and addiction issues. More often than not, again, they are repeat offenders, and again, more often than not, they are on a first name basis with the police department. It's really sad how addiction does affect people. From the city side, my older sister works at Sturdy Memorial Hospital in the wound care unit. She helps treat hepatitis patients. More often than not, a lot of patients come in. Sometimes they are under the influence. Sometimes they leave and they cannot seek treatment because they are continuous users, or they get jail sentences, or sometimes they're in rehab. Sometimes rehab does not work, and they're back in the clinic getting treatment. A concern I have, my niece is in 6th grade at Quella Middle School, and she just completed her DARE program in 5th grade, and she said it was boring. And as she gets to high school, I'm concerned for her because I'm not sure really. I hope for the best, but hopefully we have good prevention programs in place so that way people like my niece and other people at a younger age feel confident with saying no to drugs and alcohol as they get older. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Are there any particular concerns in addition to what you just shared relative to Attleboro's efforts regarding substance abuse?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, I just wondered if there was anything else you might want to add that you would see helpful for us to think about in Attleboro specifically.
I think specifically in regards to the high school, I know within the past 2 years or so, the drug program throughout students, the drug use impacting the students at the high school has definitely increased. The overdose level has increased. So definitely preventing, even just raising awareness as to what an overdose is, how it occurs, stuff like that. I feel like most of the students aren't as educated.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Please.
Hi, Eleanor. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
First of all, I'm thrilled to see someone at 28 years old wanting to get involved in something that's going on in the city of Attleboro, especially something so intense. But we also know it affects substance abuse affects a lot of people, especially, your age.
Yes.
Mostly. I mean, mainly it really does. So it's great to hear and see someone so well-spoken. And thank you very much for wanting to volunteer, because we really do appreciate that. Welcome.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All those in favor?
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None. And I am an aye. Vote passes 3-0. And next, we have another motion. I'd entertain a motion to approve also the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Greg Withers, 22 Daggett Road, to fill an unexpired term on the Council on Substance Abuse Prevention as well. Term to expire February of 2021. Thank you. I have a second. And Greg, we appreciate your coming up here too. And I know you work at Fuller, and what are you doing at Fuller at this point?
Currently, I'm a case manager, clinician, whatever you want to call it. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor at Fuller Hospital now.
Okay.
So I work on one of the 2 dual diagnosis units. Fuller is an incredible facility that deals with a lot of mental health issues, and they really consider, addiction, dual diagnosis as one of their primary focuses too. So I've been very fortunate to work there. I've learned a lot about the community, a lot about the resources Attleboro has to offer, and I'm impressed. So Greg Withers, 22 Daggett Road. I'm 32. I was born and raised in Attleboro. After college, I left, assuming I wouldn't come back, for better or worse. I did in August, and I'm very happy to be back. It's the same and it's different all at the same time, but hopefully I'm here to stay. I also have, personal and professional experience working with substance abuse and addiction. For the last 3 years, I've worked in a detox facility, seeing an extreme cases of individuals suffering from addiction. And while I was there, I also saw a lot of recidivism with people coming in and out with no hope, no help, feeling, hopeless. I also worked on an outpatient level, working the streets of Salem, Massachusetts. I worked with the Salem Police Department, helping homeless individuals suffering with mental illnesses and substance abuse problems. And then that eventually brought me back to Attleboro, where, as Mr. Waterman said, I now work at Fuller Hospital. So I have been personally affected. I know a lot of people that have been hurt by this. I know a lot of people that have died from this disease. I have a personal relationship with substance abuse and addiction as well. So now that I'm here to stay, I wanted to get as involved as possible. So working at Fuller in Attleboro has been great, and I also wanted to volunteer on this committee as well.
Terrific. Mr. Conti.
So, Greg, I'm sure you don't remember me. I haven't seen you since you were about 12 years old. And I want to thank you for coming back to Attleboro. I think so many talented, wonderful people in Attleboro blow off to another part of the country and the other part of the world, and we lose them. And I've always thought that we've lost a lot of talent, but fortunately, other talent comes in. In your case, we received a communication last week from Coelho School about what the city council thought about substance abuse and what actions we thought the city could take, and it was a student survey. And I read the email message from Coelho, and I know Councilor Delicio responded, and when I read the message, I was embarrassed that I really didn't know what to respond. So what I'm asking you is, I'm sure you're going to be appointed to the Substance Abuse Committee for the City of Attleboro, is to find a way where there's a communication link between that committee and the council to inform us of what we need to know in thinking about legislation going forward. Because I don't think if there is not a push up from there, we're not likely to find it on our own. Do you follow me?
No, I totally agree, and I think for so long it was a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation.
Yes.
Which over the last few years, obviously, it's come to the forefront, whether it's social media, the news, or everywhere. So, the fact that this was a survey in Coelho, being a middle school, is unfortunate, but it's the reality now. So I think it's good that we can get that connection as soon as possible. Obviously, I don't know the particulars of the email you received, but I think the more information we can gather and work together, the more experiences we have from all over the place, the better off we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warner.
Thank you. Anybody else like to ask any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Becky?
Thank you. That's a great idea, Council Conti. So you know what? We'll send it off to the chairman, and he can respond as well to the young man. He'll probably be thrilled to get as many people responding to him, right? Don't you agree, Councilor Delicio?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know I saw your response. You said,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
I thought you were
said-
looking to
No,
voice-
no.
So-
But I know you had responded that you would speak with the young man. So I think that's a great idea. That's a really good idea. But yeah, get us all connected all the time.
Definitely.
And thanks, Greg.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
For many of the councils, it's a rebirth. And so this is, in a way, something new. And so any communication that we have back and forth and what's important, what's simmering, and I would love to be invited as you begin getting to know the other people. I'd love to be invited to one of your meetings. Appreciate that. Are there any other questions? We thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
And
Welcome home.
so, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I say aye, motion passes. Now we have another motion. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Brian Hatch, 34 Silver Birch Road, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Conservation Commission. And if you would like to come up to the term to expire February of 2020.
Sarah, can I have a second?
And we thank you for coming as well. And we had a great conversation about open space. And I would love to have you share with the council, what motivates you to want to be a part of
Well, I'm going to give you a little background, too, because it will help you fill you in.
Just one second, if you don't mind. Can we get a second on that first before you continue? Sorry, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
I live at 34 Silver Birch Road, and I was raised in Rhode Island, and moved up to Attleboro to establish my own law office in 2003. And business and employment law is what I specialized in. But as I got along in my practice, it seemed like the volunteer work took me into the realm of land use and the environment in that area. 34 Silver Birch Road is really a good way to start here, because that gives you an outlook on how I feel about the city and open space. and some of the things that I think are worthy to note as we go forward in city planning. 34 Silver Birch Road is right through the woods from where Stone Forest Estates is. And when I first got on the Attleboro Land Trust, which I'm a board member on now, they had a negotiation with a developer there at Stone Forest to see if they could give us some parcels of land over there. And I went to the meetings, and I saw Charlie Adler, who's a great guy at the Land Trust, make a presentation on the various types of parcels and whether we should accept them or not. And basically, it was brought up, very interesting. Ted Leach was the former president of the Land Trust, brought up the point about working with developers. And actually, that if you talk to a developer about contributing land to a land trust, you can tell them, he brought this research, that if you have open space next to housing, that increases the value of your house by 20%. And so, you know, it's somebody like Ted, who's the president of Land Trust, and telling people that, I sort of took that into consideration, said, you know, if we're going to develop lands and get lands for housing, we really need to develop the open space part of the city too. And you can convince some of these developers sometimes that, yeah, you don't have to develop everything, you have to clear cut or anything like that. Because if you have open space next to the house that you're developing, or your development is going to increase the value of the house, increase the value of what you can sell those houses for. So I took that into consideration anyway. And 34 Silver Birch Road is also right across from, it's a little dead end right across Oak Hill Avenue from Ponce and Hewitt Field. Ponce and Hewitt Field is where they wanted to put the gas compressor system in, right across from there in the woods in Rehoboth. And of course, that was something you don't want to see, you know, 50 acres, it could be 150 acres they eventually destroy there for the gas compressor system, and also the safety hazard of that. So I got involved in the Citizens Against the No Rehoboth Compressor group, CARCS, and got enthusiastic about that. Interesting connection to wetlands, really, and Conservation Commission, is that in order to take a look and see where that compressor station was going, I took a walk out with Gary Crofton, who's a pretty well-known naturalist, environmental guy in the city. Took a walk out behind Ponce and Hewitt to find some vernal pools, because if you find vernal pools, they're something you can bring up and try to block development, because they're protected, basically, once you get that kind of wetlands in an area. So it was very interesting to go around and actually go see. He's an amazing guy, the way he can walk right through the woods and point out the different kinds of wildlife and how the elevations affect the wetlands and how they basically go down into the soil and come up during certain times of the year. So that was a fascinating experience, and so I sort of kept that involvement too with that no compressor group as I got along. I've been involved in that group for a while. We wanted to see what we could do in Rehoboth to stop this compressor station from going in, because we realized that the safety hazard was tremendous, and the environmental abuse and that kind of thing. So we worked together as a committee, and I drafted some bylaws compared to cities around the country that have tried to stop compressor stations and other kinds of energy stations that have really been abusive to the environment and to safety. And so I drafted some bylaws based on those statutes and took it before the town meeting, and I worked with this town solicitor there too, and it passed. And so now there are bylaws in Rehoboth that restrict the compressor station down there going in. It won't necessarily stop it, because you have higher ups, you have the state and the federal government that have a lot to say, but it's going to help, that's for sure. And with the help of Councilor Holmes, we brought that as a resolution to the council here, and they supported the bylaws of Rehoboth as they apply to Attleboro. Particularly, it's important to note that That compressor station, the land will abut Country Road down off Oak Hill Avenue. And so Attleboro needs to be concerned with first responders and things like that as far as that situation. But getting back to open space and the land trust and that kind of thing in Attleboro is, as a member of the Attleboro Land Trust, I really enjoy getting the land in and preserving it and seeing that it's important to have that in the city. And so one of the things that I got involved with was very interesting to me is there was a group called Hike Attleboro, a little entity called Hike Attleboro that was a brainchild of some of the land trust members under Mayor Dumas, and I thought that's a great idea to have sort of a ring around the city of hiking trails. Of course, that's a big focus of the land trust anyway, but what it did really was allow the three major players in open land in Attleboro, the city, quite a bit of land, the Attleboro Land Trust. We have, I don't know how many acres now, we have quite a bit of acres of land, and we've been growing all the time. And I'm in the acquisitions committee chairman, actually, to try to get that land. And the Audubon Society with La Salette and the property down there. So getting those three entities together and coordinating a trail system around Attleboro sounds like a great idea. It really is. And what I was concerned about is I saw in my participation in that little group, the Hike Attleboro group, where we had one member from the city, we had Nick Wiley, and we had Lauren Gordon from Audubon, and several of us from the Land Trust. I noticed the coordination aspect of getting the three entities to work together. It's difficult. And it's one of the things I've been pushing in the last couple of years to keep that type of enthusiasm together. It really is a concept of open space that we all need to consider, and through that little group, I think it, and I talked to Catherine Farrick about this, the Economic Development Director, and we had a couple different in-person discussions about this, and we both feel that open space and saving open space and hiking trails and things like that, they're going to foster economic development in Attleboro, actually, because businesses like in a downtown area, she agreed with me, she's been developing downtowns a long time now, and really revitalizing downtown areas. And she said that, and I agree, that you have open space in a downtown area and hiking and that kind of aspect of downtown, businesses will want to locate there because it's a friendly environment for people to take lunch, and, have meetings, and so I'm enthusiastic about that aspect of the open space concept. And I believe in the Conservation Commission is sort of a unique opportunity for me because on the Land Trust Board, but also I'm a lawyer in town, and so I think about things in monetary terms too, about economic development, but I see the two together, the open space concept and as well as conserving lands, and obviously you have to have an agency or commission in charge of some of the land use involved, with wetlands involved and open space, and of course that's where my application to become on a commission is centered right now. Catherine Farrick contacted me yesterday and said, let's have another meeting of Hike Attleboro. We are going to have one in another couple of weeks, and we'll see if we can keep that going. Got some great area down Park Street to do that, and it should be good. And another thing that's very coincidental is that my parents have property in Rhode Island, and it's right next to a 5-acre area where they had an old farmhouse, an old historic farmhouse. Developer wants to clear cut a lot of the woods, take out wetlands. There's a nice stream going through wetlands, and he wants to dig it all up. And he says, of course, this developer says he's going to dig it up and then restore it, and put an affordable housing complex down there. And You know, it's crazy, but we went before the planning board in the town of East Greenwich, and whole neighborhood grouped together, and the planning board said, you're not going to do this because there are problems. And a lot of those problems had to do with the environment. And the planning board turned them down. Now we're up before the State Housing Appeals Board because the developer, he wants to go ahead, wants to make his money. And so what we are doing now, what I'd like to do is see the way it works down there is you have the planning board make a decision, and then the developer goes for the environmental permits from the state. So what he was trying to do was get it by the planning board by saying, oh, the next step is, after you approve it, I'll go get, I'll get everything worked out with the environment. So planning board saw through that, and they turned him down, and now he's going up before the Housing Appeals Board, and in a week I have to appear before them, representing my parents actually, and I own part of their house too, so representing them, and I'll be concerned with talking to the DEM to see exactly how they're going to handle the wetland situation in that parcel, and is this developer actually going to follow through in working with them if it gets to that stage. So I'd like to find out how that works. I think looking at some of the members on the Conservation Commission will probably give me some good ideas.
Have we sparked any questions by anybody? Councilor Conti.
So, a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, a controversial measure came before the council to approve the site plan review process in the city of Attleboro, which we did adopt. And it's an expensive step for developers, but it eliminates the problem that you're addressing in Rhode Island. Brian, I am thrilled that you want to join the Conservation Commission. I think you're exactly what they need, and I think you're going to be a great contribution to that commission. And I thank you very much for stepping up and volunteering. I support you all the way.
Thank you. Councilor Blair.
Right. How long have you lived in Attleboro?
I bought my house here in 2011.
Excuse me?
I bought my house here in 2011.
2011?
In 2003, it was when
And your specialty in law?
Specialty in law is employment law and business law. Dental practices.
Excuse me?
Dental practices.
Oh, yeah?
In fact, I know one of the counselors from my work in the dental industry.
What's your opinion on development? Should we have it?
Well, like I say, there's a way to do it so that you actually work with the developer and say, listen, you're going to make more because the value of the housing that you actually develop is going to be.
I heard that from Teddy Leach a short time ago. You don't have to go over that.
Teddy Leach, right?
Neighbor. But are you against development or continue what we call sprawl? Do you think it's gone too far?
I do think it's gone too far in many ways, but like I say, in that particular area, if a developer comes before me and says, can I have a waiver of the wetlands regulations because I wanted to build a development here? One of the things you ask them, not only is it going to impact the environment, and you require their engineers to do all the work about how it's going to impact wildlife and the soil and that kind of thing. You basically say, hey, listen, if you give or donate a bit of the land trust to the land trust of that land, then that house is going to be worth more. So why don't you put a conservation restriction on part of it, or basically donate a parcel.
I understand that theory. I don't always agree with it, but I understand it. I've heard it from a number of people. Not to sound... I'm a firm believer in property owners' rights, and it's hard for a person that owns a tract of land today to get it approved for a subdivision. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of hoops to jump through in this city to get a permit through, and I think they've done an excellent job at it myself to this point. So I don't want to see an Development Conservation Committee. I personally want to see one that will work with a developer, and we've got some good developers in this area, to make sure the environment isn't hurt. But I honestly think the hoops are too big, too many of them to jump through. So to go on to a commission, I'm looking to somebody who's got an open mind.
Well, I think you can count on that, and a couple things I would say about that is that I come from two angles. I come from as an environmental lawyer, land use lawyer, but I also have my office, the Bronson building. George Batcher's the attorney right next door to me, and he's a big landowner, but he's also very, he talks well of, he talks highly of a couple of the developers in town in any case. So it's a matter, you play off different interests that you have. And that's,
We won't go any
But
further on philosophy.
but as far as, having a background in law, the regulations are what you look at, and that's what I've looked at when I've had conversations with Nick Wiley on issues that have come before it. He basically has told me they're restricted by the regulations that the developer has to abide by, and so it's difficult to then to overreach, in other words. So
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Please.
Thank you, Councilor Waterman. Hi, Brian. How are you tonight? Thanks for coming in. I think, so you moved to Attleboro in 2011?
That's right.
You've made great use of your time here. It isn't a lot, it's not a long period of time, but I know that, you're on a board member for the Land Trust. You're friends at Capron Park Zoo as well, correct? So you do a lot of volunteering here in our community, and we appreciate that. And I think that I understand your concerns. However, they are regulated and have guidelines that they need to follow. And I think that it is what I always look for, where we've had a lot of new appointments to different boards. I'm always paying attention to people's backgrounds, their interests, the things that drive them, so that we're not appointing people to boards and then they get bored or don't like it or it's not a good fit and then they walk away and we have to find somebody else for it. And I think that you're an appropriate fit for the Conservation Commission. You're working with Nick. Nick leads the charge for the commission, and I think you'll enjoy your appointment there. So I fully support your appointment to the commission.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the vote passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
And the last person I have to introduce, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Andrew Acosta, 30 Falcon Drive, Attleboro, fill an expired term on the Municipal Building Commission, term to expire February 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Andrew, we appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Acosta. I reside at 32 Falcon Drive. I've lived in Attleboro since 2013. Prior to that, I was born and raised in North Attleboro. I'd like to volunteer for the Municipal Building Commission. I've got 2 older stepkids in the high school right now. They're always coming home complaining about how old the building is, and they can't do this, and they can't do that. I've also got 2 younger kids that will be coming through the Attleboro school system, and someday hopefully using the newly constructed high school. I also have a background in heavy civil construction. I've worked on several projects in the past 10 years with the MBTA, MWRA, Mass Highway, or Mass DOT, Narragansett Bay Commission down in Rhode Island. And I think with my background, it'd be suitable for me to be on that commission with the construction of the municipal buildings.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for coming in tonight. Again, this is I look at the Municipal Building Commission as one of the premier boards here in the city. We have a lot more than just the library being built, the high school being built. We have the library is currently an issue. We have a couple of different surveys that are being done, space and use surveys and things like that. I'm looking forward to your contribution on this particular board. It's very important. Financially, you guys are kind of the watchdogs to make sure that the city taxpayer funds are being spent appropriately by the developers who are building our municipal buildings. Can you tell me what heavy civil construction is?
Civil is, well, my company, we will do any heavy, like regular construction. Vertical construction is buildings. We're mainly civil, which is earth moving, building roads, bridges, subways, commuter rail stations in Mansfield. That's about it.
So do you have any specific, I understand that a lot of those skills and that knowledge can parlay over, but building regular buildings, do you have experience with that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So Andrew, as chairman of the Capital Improvement City Development, I frequently attend the Municipal Building Commission meetings. And I'll admit that some of them are more entertaining than others. The more challenging thing that seems to come up in front of the Municipal Building Commission is the contractor contracts and performance on contracts. Have you had experience in that?
Yeah, with the, do you mean the ability of the contractor being able to perform the scope of work?
And then submitting bills that are realistic to what was done.
Yes, and right now my position with my employer is packaging up change orders and submitting them to the owner. So sitting on the commission, I would be essentially on the other side of the table, and I can see both sides. Had owners tell me, no, you're way out of line, and usually you come to some sort of an agreement, or you hold your ground and you explain your position and why there's extra changes.
Andrew, thank you for considering serving the city in this capacity. The Building Commission is going to love you. And I'm going to love having you there too, because there's, they're all volunteers, Andrew, just like you, and I really support your desire to contribute to the function of the city, because this Building Commission is getting more and more active. There's more and more projects, and if I have my way, there's going to be even more coming down the road if we can get a budget for capital improvement projects in the city. So I'm also pleased to see that they came to my tour of the water department last Saturday, so that there's kind of a very good relationship between the legislative arm of capital improvement and city development and the Municipal Building Commission. I try to report to my committee the activities of the Building Commission, and I look forward to you serving, and thank you very much for doing so.
Great.
Those are my comments.
Yes. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew.
How you doing?
I have to tell you something so funny. I was looking out in the audience, and I'm like, I know that young man. I just can't put a name to it. And then you stood up, and I'm like, yeah, because I don't recognize you without Taylor by your side, the Goodchilds, and the Noonses.
Right.
But welcome.
Thank you.
I support you 100%.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to ask a question? I like the way you handle yourself. It's a little bit beyond your years, which is a compliment from me. And I see you as a very steadying influence, if I'm any reader of people. I'm a social worker. I'm supposed to be able to read people.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. And I believe we are finished with our business tonight at 7:40. So that concludes our business.
Entertain a motion.
Oh, I entertain a motion to adjourn the Personnel and Human Services.
Just before you do that, you're not voting any of the other stuff out, that you have, any of the other individuals?
Oh, you know, I got so busy. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
I went straight for the
Can you
people
withdraw
that were
your
here.
second, please?
I withdraw my second.
Thank you.
Well, that actually would be the last piece of business, yes. Okay. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the following reappointments to positions and for terms as indicated. These are reappointments. Henry Riley III, being reappointed to the Board of Election Commissioners for 3 years, term to expire February 2022. Randall Vincent, being reappointed to alternate inspector of wiring, 1 year, expiring February 2020. Laban O'Brien, being reappointed to alternate inspector of wiring, 1 year, February 2020 expiration. Stephen Nunes, being reappointed to assistant inspector of gas piping and gas APP, not sure what that means. Term 3 years, expires February 2022. Madeline McNeely, to be reappointed to Council on Aging Director, term for 3 years, to expire February 2022. Gary Arazian, to be reappointed Director of Planning and Development for 2 years, to expire February 2021. Nicholas Wiley, be reappointed as Environmental Planner for 2 years, to expire February 2021. Scott LaChance, to be reappointed as Forest Warden for 1 year, to expire February 2020. Christopher Quinn, to be reappointed Health Officer, term to expire 1 year, term 1 year to expire February 2020. Kyle Heaney as Lockup Keeper, term to expire 1 year, February 2020, 1 year term. Catherine Rigo, to be reappointed as Parking Administrator, term of 1 year to expire February 2020. And Derek Corsi, to be reappointed as Superintendent of Parks and Forestry, 3 years to expire February 2022. Do I have a second for this?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or business that anybody would like to say? Okay, I have spoken with each and every one of these folks, and they're all very, very pleased to come back and continue to serve the city. So I would like to I made the motion, so how many would be in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes.
It's your committee, so I don't have to leave.
Okay, just checking. So also, from the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the reappointment of Edward Perica Jr. as alternate inspector of wiring, term to expire February 2020. Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any questions? Business? So I actually, let me make sure I get this right.
All in favor?
No, we'll just go forward. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So that concludes the business of the Personnel and Human Services Committee. I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I'll call for the next committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Transportation and traffic is canceled for this evening.
Budget and appropriations is canceled, but we will meet 6:45 next week.
Zoning and land use is canceled.
And I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order at 7:44 this evening. I have one item of business this evening. I entertain a motion to approve from the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to purchase parts and materials to repair the mechanical bar screen at the wastewater treatment plant and hereby request this honorable body to transfer $30,000 from account 6000-578300 wastewater enterprise fund to account 6000-548042 wastewater enterprise fund supplies, equipment, maintenance.
Second.
Thank you. So, when I first read, when this was first read into, from the mayor's communication last week, I'm like, what the heck is a mechanical bar screen? Like, I honestly, it was $30,000, a lot of money. But you also have to think about, like, wastewater doesn't have any small things. All their equipment is, like, large equipment. So I went down last Friday morning and met with Tom Hayes, the superintendent, because I said, I don't know what it is, and I want to understand so I can describe it to my fellow counselors. Well, I was kind of taken back when the building that we had to go into is, and I haven't been in there in years, is the raw sewage building. And I'm not going to say any more, except for this is where this mechanical bar screen is held, and it runs 24/7, and it's been running that way for the last 14 years. It's never, ever stops. And the way that I can describe it to you all, it's much bigger than what I'm going to describe, but I think of it as an old antique washing machine, when you had that big bucket, and they had the big metal thing, and you had to pull the cloth through one rin and into another, and that's how it goes. Well, what this mechanical bar screen does is, this is where the initial raw sewage comes up, and it cleans out like rocks and rags and anything else that's coming before it can actually filtrate to the next process. So it actually cleans out all the hard stuff. So when they replace this, they are going to actually have to have their own personnel go in, and they go, I'm going to say, like, down below where you wouldn't want to be. And they have to get in there and, like, 24/7, they're going to have people there, and it's going to take them a while before they can actually rebuild this whole machine. It's really incredible what they have. And I just feel so bad for them. Like, no, it's like that building. I don't know if all of you have been into that building, but whew, it's been a long time, honestly, for me. And I was just like blown away. But it also takes, so these parts are made, custom made, because they don't have them hanging around. So by the time we get this purchase order in, it's still going to take them a few weeks to get it off, and it's going to take them a few months before we can actually get it built, or get the parts, and then they will build it within house. So that's what they're doing with this mechanical bar screen, but it has to be done. It's critical to our process of getting rid of our waste. Any comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I have no further business this evening for the Public Works Committee, but I would ask Council Parika.
Yes.
I will not be here next Tuesday evening, so if you could just read this before the full council on my behalf, I'd really appreciate that.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you ever so kindly. I would ask for an adjournment at 7:48.
Second.
We are adjourned at 7:48. Thank you.
So I'd like to call the Capital Improvement City Development Committee to order at 7:48. Sitting on my committee are Councilor Dolan and Councilor Waterman. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion of the request of the mayor on behalf of the city of Attleboro be authorized to submit to the Department of Housing and Urban Development the proposed Community Development Block Grant 5-year consolidated plan, CDBG budget, and proposed activities to be undertaken during the upcoming CDBG entitlement year. Upon approval, Mr. Arazian will submit the Community Development Block Grant budget to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development on or before May 15, 2019.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Last meeting, we set the public hearing for the CDBG for April, I think.
Second.
Second? And this is a tricky process because the Housing and Urban Development oftentimes cannot predict when they're going to be announcing their grants. It's worse in a presidential election year, so this year I expect it to be a little bit smoother. So in the past, the council has moved some of the responsibilities from, which were in the original HUD documentation, that the council has to approve the budget. We relinquished that right to the mayor because the mayor's in the city hall 24/7. He's around more often than the full council is. And that rather than scheduling a special meeting for the city council to meet just to approve the CDBG budget when it gets finalized, it made more sense to pass that right on to the mayor and let him sign it when it became available. So what this motion does is authorizes Gary Rajan to submit the budget. The next motion is to allocate the program so that the when the mayor has the budget approved, that he can bring it down for how we distribute the money. Is that all clear? Yeah. So the motion's in order. Any discussion about the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion that once the final allocation for program year 2019 is released by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the mayor requests our honorable body to approve increasing and decreasing funds proportionally in each proposed category.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Waterman. So I would expect that there would be an increase and not a decrease this year, but I don't think that it would be a big increase. Last year, I think it was 2%. The year before was 2%. The year before it was 2%. So I'm hoping that it is not a decrease this year, but instead an increase because the money is very well applied in the city of Attleboro. Any other comments on the motion? Yes, Councilor Dolan.
Can you just clarify that?
There's three steps. Step
No,
one is...
what I want to be clear on is we to approve increasing and decreasing funds proportionally in each proposed category.
Yes, so the community development budget has several components to it. One is local allocations to nonprofits for their programs each year, and that's usually about $35,000. Another component is affordable housing. Another component is staffing of the community development organization. And there are other budget items that can float up or down. And so that's what that last motion is that when the
Based on what we get,
right,
what you're saying.
based on what we get and what the Community Development Block Grant Committee decides on how that budget should be allocated, there'll be increases and decreases across that board in some of those line items. Is that clear?
Yes.
But they have to equal the same amount going in?
They have to equal what the Housing and Urban Development is going to
Right,
allocate.
that's why the word proportional is...
Correct. Yes, Councilor.
I just think in the past, we've run into challenges. That language is very specific because we ran into changes where things had to be adjusted, and we didn't have the appropriate language accepted by the municipal council to accommodate for those changes. So that's why the language is written in such a manner so that's all-encompassing on any which way it has to go.
The intent is to give Deborah latitude, which she needs, because the federal government is not predictable.
Right, I just,
I guess I can't put it any other way.
yeah, I'm just,
Clear.
you know,
That's
it's clear. I just wanted to know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That concludes the business of capital improvement and city development. Bring before the community. We did have a water tour last week. We do have a wastewater tour this week, 9 o'clock at the wastewater department where we can see this fabulous screen. By the way, there's one of those also in the water department.
Bring a mask,
Yeah.
I know.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor? Aye. I declare the Capital Improvement City Development Committee adjourned at 7:55.
You're out. Thank you. I'd like to call the License Committee, excuse me, sorry, to order at 7:55. I have 3 motions this evening from the docket of April 2nd, 2019. I entertain a motion to approve the application dated March 19, 2019 for hawkers and peddlers license from Adam Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Benefit Street in Pawtucket.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? You all know who Pelagi is. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the application dated March 19th, 2019 from Robert Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Delta Drive in Pawtucket for a hawkers and peddlers license.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the application for Ring a Bell to sell products dated March 19th, 2019 from Robert Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Delta Drive in Pawtucket.
Second.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And that's all the business I have for the License Committee today. I'd like to call for adjournment at 7:56.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 7:56. Our members are myself, Councilor Blair, and Councilor Holmes. And from the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to accept the generous donations to the City of Attleboro Collector's Office from Bristol County Savings Bank of 3 monitors, 3 stands, and 3 USB connectors with an estimated value of $575 to be compatible with software used by the bank's lockbox company. Second. Thank you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I have no comments, questions, any others? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to accept the generous donations to the Health Office and Outreach Office of $625 in grocery store gift cards. The gift cards were donated by the Holiday Spirit Committee. Second. Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Any questions, concerns?
Just a comment.
Thank you.
That holiday committee works awful hard. And throughout the year on a number of different committees that they run raffles and fundraisers, Soup for Heat. We're lucky to have that group of girls and guys, I guess.
Yeah.
And,
People.
people. I don't want to be politically correct. Oh, just go. But they work hard and they do an awful lot.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Peter,
Nice.
for reminding us of that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. And from the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to declare the following fire department vehicle as surplus and available for disposition. It's a 2005 Ford Crown Vic. The VIN number is 2FA FT71W25X149087. It's got 157,000 miles, and it is in poor condition.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Any questions, concerns?
No, I talked to the chief today. That vehicle's pretty near junk.
Yeah.
And I believe they're going to move a Explorer down with around 60,000 miles on it. Once the water pump is fixed, that's going down, and we'll replace that car. It's a good use of city vehicles over there to move one down to take the place of one that should be out the door.
I think Chief Hegney has done that a lot. He's been able to move things
Yeah,
around
the
and
chief
make
has.
them work.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. And finally, from the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to accept the generous donations to the city of Attleboro of $75 and Stop and Shop gift cards from the Attleboro Elks Lodge, number 1014, to the Veterans Office.
Second.
Thank you. Again, self-explanatory. Can't say enough about all the work that the Elks Lodge does. Any comments or concerns from the committee? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes as well, and that is all that the City Property and Claims Committee has. I would like to request an adjournment.
Second.
Thank you, and so we are adjourned at 8 o'clock.
Okay. I'd like to call ordinance election and legislative matters committee to order at 8 o'clock. Members are myself, Councilor Waterman, and Councilor Jackson. I have two motions this evening. On the docket of January 15, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor and DPW to change the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, Section 11-9, discharge of water.
Second.
Oh, hold on. Just let me read.
keep
The amendment
going.
addition reads as follows, 11-9.4. No person shall discharge or cause to be discharged surface or any other water upon any street, sidewalk, or other public place, either by collecting the same upon his premise and discharging it upon the street, sidewalk, or other public place, or by changing the grade or surface of his premises so as to increase the amount of the rate of discharge upon any street, sidewalk, or any public place at such times or in such quantities that the water so discharged may freeze on any street, sidewalk, or other public place so as to cause a hazard to travel in the public way as determined by the superintendent of public works.
Second.
Thank you. I connected with, it did take me a little bit to get this out of committee, but I was able to connect with all the individuals I felt like I needed to talk with. The biggest change really is that some residents were getting caught up in the word impure water, and they were giving the superintendent a difficult time saying, well, this isn't impure water, and there were some discussions about that. So even though we do have this in another section of our ordinance, I do think that this would make sense to also pass this. So the other section is Chapter 19, so the stormwater management. But this ordinance would be specific to the superintendent of DPW and give him a little bit more of the enforcement ability. So any other comments?
Can you say if there was anything else that is significantly changed with the ordinance that you just...
Yeah, the biggest change would be adding his name to allow him to communicate more directly and enforce this. And then the impure water, some residents who are saying, well, this isn't impure water, so I can dump it on the street and it can freeze.
Right.
Now, they are not trying to make it difficult for people. If somebody has water in their basement, they're willing to work, the city wants to work with those individuals, because over some lots of land are very small, and so we want to work with them, but at the same time we can't have accidents because there's water being spilled in the street and then it's freezing over. So
this is probably something that's going to affect more often in cold
yes.
weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was curious, when I was reviewing this, so I understand, we have lots of things that no person shall discharge or whatever. This it looks to me like it may be something that there's the potential for like repeat offenders. Is there what is the enforcement portion of it? Did you have a conversation with Mr. Tyler about how he would go about enforcing it? Should we consider adding like a line on the fee structure or like a civil offense or anything like that?
That's a good question. He was saying that the letter that they use, which it's like a formatted letter, and they would just change the name of the resident that would be getting the letter, he would be able to then say, add in what we're doing here, and he felt like that would give them a little bit more power, or instead of somebody just saying, well, this doesn't relate to me, it's kind of clearly stating it does relate to them.
Sure.
So, but he didn't go into whether he felt like there needed to be an actual monetary something to...
Like a fee or a fine for any of those kinds of things. Because I guess what I'm, feel free to pass that out of your committee, but I think that would be a question that I would like to hear back from Mr. Tyler on what would the enforcement be on a circumstance such as this.
Okay.
And it isn't a question, in fairness, I could have asked him that question question when he was here for the public hearing, but it didn't occur to me until most recently.
You can check on that this week. Bob.
Yeah, feel free to move it out of your committee and do the things, but if you could have that question answered for next week, that would be terrific.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Councilor Holmes, I guess my question is, if we pass a law giving the superintendent the ability to declare an application as against the ordinance, therefore against the law, does it transfer the liability away from the city to the homeowner? I guess is where I'm thinking this comes from. And I don't know that we need to bother the city solicitor about this. I don't think that we need to have an application where there is a fine for violators unless it continues to be rampant. You know, I mean, we could continue to make changes to this as we go forward. And we're not the only community that's wrestling with this, because this year many communities found that they had to do the same thing we're doing right now. So I'm comfortable putting it through just the way it is, but I guess I would appreciate a little bit more background if I'm not. I guess I'm comfortable supporting it the way it is, and I guess I should just leave it at that. Okay. And that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I would just hop on that with Councilor Conti, is that I think that when Michael Tyler was here, he was kind of saying that in a roundabout way, that he didn't want to find people, he wanted to work with them. And I think that if we put it in this way, and then as Councilor Parikh is saying, and we look back at it and see if there could be a fine. It's something we might do the second year around. You know, you amend it and add, because he didn't want to be getting into these heated discussions. I think he was kind of saying with the homeowner, because they're frustrated at that time too. You know, they're obviously not just dumping it out for the heck of it. You know, they're flooded. So I think I would be comfortable passing it as is also, but with the knowledge that if we run into issues into the next year, that we would be able to readdress it.
Can I just readdress that just for a second? So I think that, you know, any department head, I think having, if there is a, let me think about how I want to say this. So I think that if there is a question with regards to this, what I have found is that in circumstances such as this, there's always a question about the enforcing authority. Who's the one who's in charge of making, is it is it Bill McDonough? Is it Mike Tyler? Is it this one? And I think that needs to be, you know, again, putting his name on that kind of spells that out a little bit. Any department head can use their discretion when it comes to assessing a fine or things like that. They would have the ability to try and work with the individual first, and then it said that having a fee structure, if that's what we wanted to do, as backup, saying, listen, I don't want to have to do this, so let's be compliant now before we get to this stage, and I have to fine you, $25 a day until whatever the reason may be. That's the only reason why I asked that question. Again, you don't have to hold it up for me, but I think this is actually a pretty good discussion to have on. Because we're forever trying to figure out who the enforcing authority is on certain ordinances, and I think it should be made crystal clear what that is for this particular one.
So I kind of see this as multi-layered, right? So one, this is giving the superintendent of public works a little bit more capacity. I think it's clarifying a little bit of accountability, where the accountability lies, where the liability lies. So I guess what I would say, Councilor Holmes, is, and maybe it is something we can look to readdress at some other point, or if you are going to speak with the superintendent, perhaps just because my concern is what's motivating the repeat offenders to actually change their behavior. So, I don't know if that's a fine. I don't know if it's just, first time it's a warning, second time it's a fine, is it at discretion? But we always talk, as Vice President Parikh was saying, about where the enforcement comes into play. My biggest thing with this, because I like the way it's written, I like the changes that are made, I think it clarifies everything. My biggest concern would be what's motivating the repeat offenders to change their behavior.
Okay, I will ask him second. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's fine. Jay sort of
You took it for you? Yeah.
Took my time.
Good. All right. So I will vote it out of committee, and then I'll get those questions for next week.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. And I just want to let everyone know, for the Disability Commission, there is something that I have to introduce to actually take it off the books, because we kind of have two things right now. We have the Disability Council that's in the ordinance book, and now we've adopted the commission. So I'm probably going to be striking it from our ordinance, because it doesn't make sense to have
Right.
both things right now. So I just wanted to let you know that that's not finished. You're going to be hearing more about that, but it's just basically cleanup. And then I have one other motion. So from the docket of November 6, 2018, I entertain a motion to amend Section 11-11 under Chapter 11, Offenses of the Revised Ordinance of the City of Attleboro as it pertains to hunting and firearms, and replace as the following. Delete Section 11-14, Firearms under Chapter 11, Offenses, and replace it with the following. Section 11-14, Hunting and Firearms. 11-14.1. No person shall discharge any firearm or other explosive in any street, sidewalk, or other public place within the limits of the city, except in the lawful defense of a person, family, or property, or in the performance of any duty required by law. 11-14.2. No person shall hunt within the limits of any highway, park, conservation land, or other property owned or controlled by the city of Attleboro. 11-14.3. No person shall hunt in any private property except within the written consent of the property owner or legal occupant thereof, which consent shall be dated not more than 1 year prior to the act complained of. 11-14.4, written permission obtained in compliance with this section, as well as all licenses, permits, and stamps required for hunting under state law shall at all times while hunting be in possession of a person to whom it was issued and must be available for inspection. 11-14.5, it shall be unlawful for any person to set, trigger, activate, or otherwise use or cause to set, trigger, activate, or use any type of steel jaw or leg hold trap, including but not limited to padded or unpadded leg hold traps.
Excuse me, point of order. Excuse me, thank you very much. Excuse me, Madam Chairman. Before you completely finish reading all of this, I didn't see all my emails today yet, and Council Waterman was just handing me the decision that you just got from our city solicitor, which apparently that's probably what you were talking about when I walked into the room earlier. I haven't had a chance to read this, and I respectfully, since you just heard me, I'm not going to be here next week. If you could hold off on this, since it's been going on for so long, I'd like to get a chance to read this, because I can't read it that quickly and comprehend it all at once. So before you read everything into your committee, if you wouldn't mind just holding off on this motion a couple weeks, I'd really, really, really appreciate it. It's not going to change anything at this point.
Well, I don't know what the email from today, but that opinion did come out a while ago. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah.
I think that I do
And it
want...
came out today, it was addressed to you and Councilor Cobus. So I want to know if you would just please hold off so that I can take a look at this and review it before you bring it out of committee. It's not going to change anything at this point in time, and it's been in a committee for a very long time. And it's great that everybody's been working at it, but I just would like a chance to reread it.
Well, I think I'm going to read this forward, and I'll provide some information and at least be able to do that, and then we can kind of determine if we want to bring it out of committee or not at that point, because there's some changes I do want to make, and I'm already, kind of have prepared some stuff, so I think that I will be moving forward and then determine if I'm able to make some changes before. So,
Councilor Holmes, can I jump in here for just a second?
no, I'm moving.
Well, actually, as acting president, I can. So what I was going to say to you was, I would strongly recommend that you continue to read this, so then it's read into committee, and we don't have to read it in its entirety again. I also, if you want to make motions to amend this, you would need the permission from your committee to be able to add those to there. So it would be apparent to me that Ms. Jackson would be a no, potentially, because she doesn't have the specific information in the language, and which then puts Mr. Waterman in a bit of a challenging position. I would say that you absolutely finish reading this, make your comments, and then, as the chair, you can go right ahead and do whatever it is that you so choose, but I would take your committee's comments and requests seriously.
And I wouldn't think of doing that otherwise. I would always take everybody's comments seriously. On the private property of the city of Attleboro, trapping on posted or unposted private property or with any of trap not already prohibited, this section shall be permitted with a box trap if written permission is obtained from the owner or legal occupant of the person having the right of control thereof. 11-14.6. Whoever violates any of the provisions of this ordinance shall be punished by a fee of $300 for the first offense and each offense thereafter. Each violation shall be considered a separate offense. Each day that any such violation continues shall be considered a separate offense.
Well, I will second that,
Thank you.
but I would like to also add, this did come in late in the afternoon. I don't recall it was the last item to come in, and I happened to notice it just before I was eating supper. And I myself just barely had time to reread all of this. So I do think that the concern of putting it off for 2 more weeks is a valid one. I don't see, it's not hunting season, so I don't think anything will be disrupted in that way. Do you see that as disrupting anything?
I'm gonna go along with what I have prepared. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan and Councilor Cobus, for introducing this business. I also want to thank the Assistant Director of Wildlife Research, Mike Hunigan, Police Chief Kyle Hegney, and the residents who came out for the public hearing on February 5th. 7 people spoke in favor and 19 spoke against it. This is certainly a complex issue that does have a lot of gray areas at times. I'm aware that the Conservation Commission would like to continue efforts on the Hike Attleboro program, and I didn't even know he was going to mention that tonight, and that there is concern about hunting taking place where families would be hiking. The Assistant Director of Wildlife Research stated that he did not see a concern with hunting and hiking taking place together. I do find it a little concerning. We also have the issue of the space in the city. Even while discussing it with the Assistant Director, he mentioned that there are not many areas in the city that support hunting right now. I did provide a map, and I have a colored map that I can also pass out. We also have more homes that are being built each year, which does cause for concern. On the other hand, Zone 11 from Fish and Wildlife does include Attleboro. There's been an alarmingly large number of deer, and this was certainly a learning curve for me to understand the management of wildlife and what that entails. I've compiled many of the documents we received during this process, and we'll leave it in the council office so it's available for your review in the next week or so. This does include 4 city solicitor opinions, the communication from the Conservation Commission chair, Attleboro's 500-foot setback, the City of Attleboro's conservation land, hunting-related calls from the City of Attleboro from 2013 to 2018, landowner land use agreement card from Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, the hunting season information, communications from the residents, and a copy of the fishing and hunting for 2019. There are a few areas that the Assistant Director encouraged me to adjust before bringing this out. So for that, I'd like to strike 2 parts of this current ordinance as they're redundant to the state law. So, I would like to entertain a motion to strike all of 11-14.5 as, again, the steel, this has to do with the trap. It's already in the state law.
And that is because it is redundant? Okay, I will second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would like to strike 11-14.4. It says as well as all licenses, permits, stamps required for hunting under law. That, again, is redundant for the state law. So it would read as this. 11-14.4, written permission obtained in compliance with this section shall at times while hunting be in the possession of the person to whom it was issued and must be available for inspection.
Okay. I will second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So I understand that there's a lot going on, and as I mentioned, I have this whole folder of all those documents, and they will be available in the council room, so I was able to kind of put everything together. And I think that, I'm not sure how everyone feels or if this is going to pass or not, but I think it's time that we have the discussion and we move forward. So I would like to take it out of committee, but if my committee members don't want me to or think that there's something else I need to be doing, then I will certainly consider that. Councilor Conti?
So, Councilor Holmes, at the end of the public hearing, I stated that I would have liked to have heard from Massachusetts Wildlife, their position on wildlife management. Is that one of the documents that's in?
Yes, we had a lengthy discussion, and that was what I just decided to strike from the record, and a lot of what I discussed were his comments. So they get very concerned when there's restrictions in any city or town, and they always want to make sure that the wildlife management is occurring. And he did provide an email, and he was the one that provided the setback, the 500 setback map.
Thank you.
Yes.
I won't be supporting this when it goes on the floor, you know that. But I think also that 2 more weeks isn't going to make any difference. I know Ms. Jackson has some concerns, and I think she should have the opportunity to hear them and to read that from the city solicitor. You just got one this afternoon. I didn't read it if we got one this afternoon myself. I also had some conversations with our past conservation agent, and the definition of conservation land more or less says you can hunt on it. And written opinion, a written notice of permission from a homeowner, that puts a burden on the hunters. Because if you've got any sense at all and you're a landowner, you're not going to give written permission, because you accept a lot of liability when you give written permission for anybody to use your property. So I won't be voting in favor of this when it comes out, but I think Councilor Jackson and myself would like the opportunity to read that, and Councilor Jackson won't be here next week. She's already said that. So I would hope that you would hold us in committee so we can get another committee meeting and then vote on, bring it out then. But I think you've done a great job. Don't get me wrong, this isn't personal.
Yeah, I don't think
But this, I think it's a bad ordinance from the start.
Thank you. That's all I would ask, is just please hold it. We can vote it out this evening out of committee if you'd like, because if there are any amendments that need to be amended, we can do that, but I just would ask that you don't vote it out to the full council next week, please.
Wait.
So I just want to give kudos to Councilor Holmes here. I think she has done an incredible job finding the issues that are important statewide. She's put together a whole packet of information here. And some of what we received late this afternoon, we had already had, but it does fall, it falls back in your mind. There's a lot of things going on, and so, sometimes you actually forget. So I think that her bringing it out tonight has been great because it puts it all right back fresh, so that you go back, you look at everything, you understand what we're doing, and when she does bring it out, I think we'll all be on top of it. I so appreciate the background work that she has done on this ordinance, and actually everything that you have done in this particular post that you are in. It's unbelievable. You research, you do a really good job, and so I just want to commend her, and I think that we'll all be really well informed when we make our decision in a few weeks. Thank you. That's all I
Thank you.
have to say.
Thank you. Councilor Crafty.
So, Councilor Holmes, I'll be a little bit more blunt. There's been a lot of city councils before you that would have buried this legislation for a long time. One of them needs to be sitting next to you.
He's been in it for a long, long time.
I'll take credit for that.
But I'm a little confused. You read the motion from section 11-14 in its entirety. It was seconded and it was voted. Am I correct? Yes. And then you voted to strike 11-14 and a portion of 11-14-4. Am I correct?
Yes.
So it is out of your committee now because you have made the motion
Nope.
and you have voted.
No, because we
No.
haven't approved it.
Those were
No,
amendments.
but it's out of committee now because
They voted on the amendments.
No, those are amendments that she voted.
The
Not the
initial-
motion as a whole.
vote on the original motion?
No.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's where I was confused.
See, we can both make mistakes, right?
We agreed to the
Getting old.
changes, right, to those two things.
So I agree with Sarah. And this is, everywhere we go, I either hear about nuns crossing the street at La Salette, Beagle Club Road, or the hunting ordinance. Like, I'm at the grocery store, and these are the conversations that I'm having. I'm so glad that you made a motion to strike the 11.14.5, because when that first rolled out, you can ask Councilor Kobus, I was all over him about that, saying it's redundant, there's no need for it. I understand that, there's always legislation at the state level to try and bring it back, but I can guarantee you this is one piece of legislation that will never be brought back. In addition to that, the other line that you did, as well as all licenses and permits, I appreciate the fact that you're amending this so that it's Massachusetts state law covers a lot of the hunting all of the hunting requirements. It's a lot of restrictions and a lot of legislation, but I was happy to see that those two things were made, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think as well that you've done a superb job. I think this is a very complicated issue, and I want to thank you for that. I have a couple of questions. So I'm not quite ready to move it out of committee yet, but I'm confident that we'll be there very soon. One question I have relates to our city solicitor talking about conservation land and whether conservation land should be available for hunting or not for hunting. Could you explain that a little further, what she said about conservation land?
So from her point of view, conservation land does include a public place, which is what we have right now on the books. But this is where, when I was saying that there's a lot of gray area, even when I was meeting with the planning and Nick Wiley, so Gary, Nick, and myself, we were asking each other questions related. It's very complicated. So, for instance, conservation land indicates you can't have motor vehicles. It indicates you can pick berries or you can pick flowers, but hunting is kind of not listed as something to do or not to do. It's kind of this gray area. Yeah.
So do you feel that this covers that adequately, or do we need to say anything more about conservation?
Well, 11-14.2 does say conservation land.
No hunting.
Yeah. The new
Okay.
one does.
Yes,
Unless somebody is amending it on the full.
So I have one more question, if I may.
I just wanted to respond to that.
Oh, feel free. then.
So I would suggest that what we received from the attorney, actually, she put it right down there, her own opinion. We didn't really ask her for her personal opinion. We asked her for the law, and she cited the law, then actually voiced her own opinion, which, I'm sorry, that's not appropriate, that we want to know the law. So I think that when this comes out, we have to, or I believe what we're being asked to do is, do we believe, is it our opinion, because as the conservation gentleman said, it can be either or. So I think that we're being forced to make an opinion ourselves. Do we believe that conservation, the great amount of conservation land here in the city, can be used at certain times for hunting? And do we make the restrictions on, rifles, guns, black powder, or bows? Or do we allow one or the other? I think that is a restriction that we either are going to have to make, or we just say, yes, they can hunt on it, or no, they can't. But I think in the long run, it's going to come back as to why either you vote yes on it or you vote no on it. So that's where, when you research it again and go through it, I think it's important to understand what the question you just asked here.
I agree entirely.
Those are my comments.
Diana?
Did you have one other thing?
Yes, I have one more question, if I may. I don't recall, I'm sure we said something that made it quite clear, but I don't recall. How did we derive $300 as a fine?
I'm not, I didn't bring this new business in, so.
I know that. Where did that come from?
The thought process behind that was that it was a high enough dollar amount. A lot of these things are a graduated schedule, like the first offense, the second offense, and the third offense. My thought was to set that bar relatively high in order to discourage people from violating this ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that will conclude, so I will keep it in committee then, and I'll.
You won't vote no. Please.
Oh, no, I was just, that's fine.
And I'll leave the full packet, so again, it has the city solicitor's opinion, it has some information from our conservation agent, just the calls that we've received to the city from 2013 to 18, so there's a lot of good information that's all kind of put together in this packet, so I will leave that in here, and then let's probably touch base in the next committee meeting in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So I'm confused again. Are you making a motion to lay the motion on the table?
No. She's just not bringing
I'm
it
going
up.
to keep it in committee.
Motion that was seconded on the whole thing.
Yes,
That motion that was seconded was not voted on.
that's correct.
So are you making a motion to lay that motion on the table?
Just sitting there.
I don't
It's
think
just
she
in-
has.
Yeah, it's just going to stay in my committee.
Didn't come out of committee.
We had discussion.
Yeah. I
Still up
think-
for
Great, if
discussion.
I could
Richard.
just procedurally, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I think what will have to happen is that the second will have to be withdrawn. We'll have to make the motions to amend. You don't have to, you can waive the reading. At the next committee meeting, you can waive the reading, make the motions to amend for a second time, because those pass, because we have to withdraw the original.
Or you can lay it on the table, which is my point.
Just do that.
So
She can make a motion.
you've got two options here that the way I understand it. One option is to withdraw the second and have to go through all this again. Or to make a motion to lay it on the table, which keeps everything intact, but suspends any activity on it until you decide,
Yeah.
or a member of your community decides, to pick it up from the table.
Yes, I think I would like to do.
Excuse me, I believe almost the same thing. You can just actually say, okay, well, after discussion, I'd like to make a motion to hold this in committee, and we can vote on that, and then that's it, then you can adjourn. That's
It's the
my
same as
belief.
laying out.
Okay,
I don't,
okay.
I got it, I have it right here. If you look at
Just not going to bring it out.
Yeah.
So lay it on the table, takes precedence of all other subsidiary motions, may be applied to the main motion, to appeals, to reconsiderations and privilege motions that arise under questions of privilege. It is in order when the motion to close debate is pending or has been carried.
Say it.
Cannot be debated or amended. Not in order immediately after assembly has voted down the objection, cannot have any subsidiary motion applied to it, cannot apply to any subsidiary motion.
Doesn't that relate to a regular council meeting?
Yeah, I don't think it's
Is
for, I don't think that applies for committee.
No.
But I do think that she can just make a motion to say, after discussion, I will then now entertain a motion to hold this in committee, approval of members,
Yes.
and we'll take a vote on that.
I entertain a motion to, well, first of all, I just really want to thank everybody for the discussion. I know that, and I thought that the public hearing was great. It was, like I said, it was a learning curve for me. I feel like I learned a lot. And it didn't get, people were passionate, but it didn't get to the point of being uncomfortable. I just really appreciated that. I don't like to be uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable this whole time. So I think it's good to have the discussion, but I would like to entertain a motion to hold this and
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned
Gratitude.
at
Thank you.
8:35. Thank you.
Call Public Safety Emergency Management Committee to order. I have 5 motions this evening from the docket of April 2nd, 2019. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor regarding the needs for funds to purchase tourniquets and a duty belt carrying cases for our police officers. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests this honorable body transfer $6,828.96 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1210100-558208 Police Supplies.
Second.
I talked to Chief Hegney today, and he had some real concerns. It's a necessity. One incident, I'm going to turn this over to my fellow counselor, Jay DeLisio, because he has more of a personal connection with one of our police officers that was directly involved with a case of tourniquets being used. And I will let Jay handle it. He's on my committee, so I'll let Jay handle that, and then I'll take it back and make some other comments. Jay?
Thank you, Council Blair. So one of our lieutenants on the police force, his father was involved in a very unfortunate accident just this past Friday. His father works in Rockland, where he's from, and he works in industrial machines and machinery. And he was up cleaning at 66 years old. This used to own the company. This is now kind of his retirement job. So he was helping training someone coming in, and there was a piece of it he was trying to get in. It's a big giant fan like mechanism, and he says to the guy he's training, says, "All right, it's all right to turn it on." So the guy went down, turned it on, and before he got there, he looked and he says, "Oh wait, there's something else up there." So he went to just kind of grab it. At the same time, the piece of machinery was turned back on, and the lieutenant's father ended up losing his left arm from his elbow down. Tore a lot of the skin off the arm, and I'm not trying to be too graphic. The reason I bring this up is because the Rockland police came in and they acted quickly, and they had these tourniquets that they were able to apply to the lieutenant's father, which saved his life. Saved his life, you know. So he underwent some surgery today to repair what is left, a skin graft. I believe it was a 7-hour surgery. I haven't talked to the lieutenant yet, but he was in high spirits. You know, when he was getting escorted out in the ambulance, he looked at the owner of the company and said, "I literally gave my left hand for this company." So, you know, but I think it just illustrates the importance of the tourniquet, understanding the importance that they play. It saved this man's life, and the irony irony of it is that his son is a lieutenant on the force. So kudos to the Rockland Police to be able to come out and act as quickly as they did. And Council Blair, thank you. As you said, it is personal for me because the lieutenant and I, we've coached basketball together for the last several years. Good guy, one of the best. So you hate to see this happen to anyone, but it illustrates the importance of these
I
tournaments.
had talked to Kyle today and was informed of this, but I know you had a personal connection and you knew more about the incident than I did, other than it was bad. Another incident that happened last year, remember a suspect was shot on Route 1 by a police officer returned fire? And those police officers, one of them had a tourniquet. And whether we think he should have or shouldn't have, he saved that guy's life by putting a tourniquet on him. So, and we have to protect our guys on the street, not only the citizens but themselves. The world has changed, and there's incidents out there that we never even thought of before would be happening. And they happen. And it's not always the fire department that's the first one there. In a lot of cases, probably most cases that involve gunfire, bad automobile accidents, whatnot, the police are the first responders. So this is actually, in my opinion, a cheap tool to save lives. And it could end up saving a fellow police officer's life or a fellow worker, city worker. So to me, $6,800 is cheap money to save a life. And I think we owe it to our police department, our policemen, and our citizens to have our first responders equipped properly. And this two instances that we know of directly, it works. Yes, Jay?
Two things real quick. First of all, I did share that story with the permission of the lieutenant.
Yeah.
I had a long conversation with him this morning, so I didn't want anyone to think I was speaking out of school. But secondly, to your point, Council Blair, we need to take care of those who take care of us, and I think this is a simple tool which can save lives.
Very, very well put, Jay.
Thank you.
Any other comment, Mr. Kovas?
You don't have to argue the value of these tourniquets. Overseas, every soldier had one in our pocket, in our legs. Everywhere we went, it was just sort of part of the uniform. It's by far the most effective tool for trauma and whatnot. So, I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate your comments. Any other questions, comments from my fellow councilors? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
Why don't you sit up there
I'm
so
over
I
here, I'm
can
like,
see?
yeah, just not necessary.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor regarding emergency management performance grant from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency of approximately $13,760. The mayor requests this honorable body to approve expending of such fund and any future grant amendments for this grant. The $13,760 money provided through this grant will be utilized towards the procurement of a 2019 or 2020 Ford F-350 four-wheel drive pickup truck with a 9-foot plow, emergency warning equipment, and other accessories.
Second.
I also today sat down with our fire chief on this particular motion because I had some questions. This grant money can't be used towards, I brought up something in a further motion down. It's got to be used for emergency management purposes. And the grant was actually written for this pickup truck. So he said, yeah, maybe I could go back and get it amended, but this truck will replace an old Ford pickup truck we have that'll be put up for either use in The fire department has no more use for it, but maybe another department might have. Or it'll be surplus. These trucks, we got two now. We'll have to, you've seen the one go around with the dualies on the back, the big wheels? We'll have that one with a plow, the new one with a plow. We'll take care of our fire stations, plowing. But an important part of these vehicles is during the winter and the storms, they accompany ambulances out there. I wasn't completely aware of that, but that's common practice in a storm, that if an ambulance goes out, a plow truck goes with it most of the time. So you get to your street and they can't get down the street, somebody's hurting in the house down there, they have a plow to get to it. So after talking with Chief LaChance, and I questioned him on it, and I said, can't we use this 13 grand somewhere else? And he said, actually, we can't. Well, then again, he says, I could go back and try, but it's got to be emergency management, and this is top priority in the emergency management field. So I felt real comfortable after leaving his office. I walked in with questions, I walked out with answers, so I will be supporting this. I think it's a good use of the $13,760 grant. Yes, Mr. Cobus.
Thank you for your explanation. I was on the fence about this one combined with the next one after this.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware that these were used to help escort ambulances, so that's...
I wasn't either, Todd, to be honest with you, you know. And I wasn't sure that this $13,700 couldn't have been used for something further down the line in tonight's business. And it can't be. It's an emergency management grant, and it can't be used for fire equipment and whatnot. Yes, Mr. Dooley.
To that point, I think it's important to point out when we get these grants, whether from MEMA, EOPSS, wherever they may come from, they're very specific on what they can and can't be used for. So I think when we're talking about it, whenever we get a grant, I mean, we've got some of the best grant writers. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But to be able to get a grant like this, which is going to continue to help bolster the emergency response, not just the emergency management, but the response. Because, you know, I think back to, what was it, the winter of 15, that brutal winter, you know, imagine not having that. So, you know, I think that it's good to have the partnerships that we have, the grant writers that we have, that gives us the access to these funds that otherwise we may not be able to ascertain.
A lot of cities and towns don't have that advantage. We do get a lot of grant money, and it's only through the grant writers. If you don't write the grants and it doesn't sound right, you don't get them. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain from the docket of April 2nd, 2019. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $31,270 from account 1000-359000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 12201-000-587060 fire vehicle equipment replacement.
Second. Point of order, Councilor Blair,
Yeah.
you said $31,270.
Oh, 75. I'll kick in the 5.
Yeah, all right, that's good.
Getting back off the jokes, this is no joke either. This is the difference between that $13,000 from the grant and the purchase price of that vehicle. Any questions or comments? Hearing none? All those are in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of April 2nd, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $22,500 from account 1000-359000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 12201-000-585049 fire industrial cleaner to purchase NFPA 1851 compliant gear washer and drying cabinet for the Union Street Fire Station.
Second.
The original request, before it come down to us, was for two. One for South Attleboro, one for here. We got a letter today from the President of the Union strongly suggesting we get two in the need. Due to financial situations in this city, we're going to be in a tough budget situation. I personally feel, and this is no disrespect for a single firefighter out there, because they put their lives on the line, they should be able to get this gear clean. I know it's a little inconvenient for this year, and I think the other one should be on next year's budget, Mr. Budget Director. It should be in next year's budget, because we know it's coming up. Right, Mr. Conti? We know it's going to be a bill?
It is.
Okay. So for the time being, let's get one as soon as possible, put it in the Union Street Fire Station. And like I said, no disrespect to the union or to any firefighter, but at least the availability to get this gear washed will be 2.5 miles away. It'd be like going to the laundromat. So I'm in favor of this. It's something we should do. Get that gear clean, because it is injurious to their health to not clean them properly. And that concludes my comments. Mr. Tokobis?
The one thing I would ask, I'm happy to move forward with this one and move it out of committee, but the one thing I would ask you to look into is if there's any cost-saving benefit to buying two at once in savings and installing
Probably,
and whatnot.
Todd, I don't know, but this probably goes through a bid list, and there's probably only certain vendors. I'll check on it by next week.
Out of curiosity.
Be more than happy to check on it, but
We could save $5,000 by buying both of them.
oh,
That would be
if
useful information,
that
but-
was the case, but sometimes you don't have the $5 to spend. But I will check that out for you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. So, do you know, Peter, if, when you were just talking about the emergency management grant,
Couldn't be used for this.
it can only be used for a truck?
Can only be used for I asked that very same question. This is fire apparatus related to the fire department persona. I asked Chief LaChance that. That's one of the reasons I went to see him, to see if we could move this over, and he said definitely not.
So, do you happen to know, like, with that grant, other than buying like this fancy 350 four-wheel drive pickup truck with a plow, what else you could use that for?
He said there was some things that were possible, but they weren't as urgent as the need for that truck. And I can only, I went in there with a lot of questions, Kate,
Yeah.
and to my satisfaction, they were answered when I left. And that's the reason I went, because his money gets tight, and I seen that 13,000 there, and then the motion is so down, you know, we're looking to buy a $31,000
I'm looking at the
washer.
31,000 that's coming out of us,
Right.
free cash. That's what I'm not looking at but I'm just looking at that. It's like, oh boy, 350. That just blows my mind. A big truck like that. What do they need it for? But
That's a cheap truck. That 45,000? It's not an expensive truck. That's a good price for that truck. That's a 350 with a 9-foot plow. The plow itself is 10 grand. If you or any of us went out to buy it.
ask them to take care of it like the police do.
All right, maybe I didn't understand you correctly.
Well, back to the gear washer for a second. I just happened to see the gear washer today. I was over doing a tour. The chief showed that to me. And I guess we all know that this is to protect them against possible cancer.
Yeah.
And from what I was told, it looks old. It looks old, and it looks like it's bordering on rusty.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the one at Union Street.
Yeah.
And he also told me that it doesn't do as thorough a job of decontaminating the uniforms as we would hope?
I don't think it's in compliance with the new rules and regs.
No, okay, just for information.
Yeah, I believe that was the case last year, because it's been on their capital improvements. Because when I went on the tour last year, they wanted one last year.
Thank you.
And the washer is in rough shape, but I believe also the dryer, I feel like it doesn't dry.
No.
Like, I feel like they had told us, you know what the material is, so
Yeah.
I feel like they had told us that it doesn't dry, so they have to hang them, and obviously, if they need these and they're not dry, it's really
Putting back
not
on contamination.
convenient, contaminated and wet.
Yeah.
Furthermore, so I believe it's been on, I don't know if the South Attleboro one was on the capital improvements, but I did see the one on Union Street, and it's in rough shape, for sure.
I didn't get into the South Attleboro one in depth with the chief. I know they need one.
No, I do remember Union Street desperately needed one, and that was a year ago, like last month or this month, so.
And to quote Mr. Delicio, let's protect those who protect us. Yes, Heather?
Thank you, Councilor Blair. So we just took a vote a little bit ago, significantly less money, however, for tourniquets to protect those who protect us, and helping us to be protected and things like that. The rate of instances where either firefighters who work for us here in the city or statewide is increasing. And, we need to, so first of all, the individual one has my 100% support. I think that, we question on the regular the spending of free cash, whether it's for, F-350 pickup trucks or things like that. I understand in certain circumstances. I thought that your comments with regards to that about having that go in front of a plow, having that go in front of an ambulance in certain circumstances, I get that. I had an interesting conversation over the weekend with the fire chief actually in Norwood, and they actually have a smaller fire department than we do. They have 2 extractors. It's interesting, the conversation that I had, that dirty uniforms 30 years ago were a badge of honor. And firefighters were like, look at how dirty my hat is, and look at how, my gloves are a mess, and I get whichever. I'm not an expert, obviously, on firefighters. However, what we're learning now and what's becoming more prevalent in the news is how the toxic chemicals that are sitting on their skin on a regular basis. Not every firefighter has that second set of clothes just yet, or uniforms. There are things that are taking place kind of simultaneously, and first of all, I support the first one. I would strongly recommend that we clamor away. That purchase is, in my opinion, an appropriate use of free cash. It's a one-time expense that'll last X amount of years. So I think it should go back to the administration for a potential appropriation. I know that the budget time is going to be very difficult, but also paying benefits to families who have lost their loved ones due to their inability, to getting cancer because we aren't able to maintain their health simply by washing their gear. I think that's a responsibility for the residents of the city of Attleboro and for us specifically to provide that, to, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but to protect those who protect us. Thank you.
Jay?
I would just add, I don't want to belabor the point. Vice President Parika spoke eloquently about a lot of what I was going to say. I've been very much on the whole free cash. We got to make sure that it's the right. This is the right purchase. This is something that I'm going to be talking to the chief about further. I did have the opportunity. I spent quite a good amount of time Saturday afternoon on the phone with the chief talking about this, other things coming down. When it comes down to budget, this is going to be something that I'm going to be talking a lot about, something that I think we need to budget for, because, and I appreciate the levity and the comparison to the laundromat, but I think we've got other things that we could be using the firefighters' time for. So I think we need to give them what they need. And we've been to too many funerals of firefighters who've lost the battle to cancer. So we have an opportunity for relatively short money to provide them with the equipment they need to go in conjunction with the grant that we had last week in committee.
Yeah.
So I think there's other steps we can be taking. So I know,
I hope I didn't come across wrong, Jay, when I said it's sort of like having a laundromat, but at least we have the facility to get it done.
Correct.
And I've
I didn't take
mentioned
it any other
it,
ways.
Richard is said it many times about many different things. When you know there's something coming up that needs to be done, it should be in the budget. So I think we have the opportunity with the budget coming down to make sure that second one is in the budget. Yes, Richard?
It's really disturbing to sit here and listen to you say what I wanted to say.
I don't agree with you a hell of a lot, you know that.
So true, it's comical.
It's really true, but
I just took the
what I wanted to
opportunity.
say to you is that if there was a capital budget, this would be in there. That section of the fire station at Union Station, when Councilor Dolan and I walked in there last year, I thought was the worst image to ever use in career solicitation for potential firefighters. It's disgusting. That machine is way beyond its useful life. And the one upstairs that they use to dry it, they're not even using because it doesn't work. You know, and there should be no tolerance for that.
Well,
if there was a capital improvement budget, those things would be taken care of. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, and I hope we have your support next week. Any other questions?
Can I just add something?
Sure.
It kind of has something to do with this. Everybody's talking about free cash. I talked to Barry last week, and he assured me that we're not spending any more or doing anything different than we have done in previous years regarding free cash. He said this year, like, the numbers may be higher as far as appropriations, but the dollar amount isn't. So, like, it was like more smaller. Last year might have been less motions, but more money. So, but he assured me that we're not doing anything different than we have done in previous years with free cash. And right now we stand at like over 1.5 million left if everything that has been brought down right now that we have in front of us is approved. I forgot how many there are in front of us right now. That was in the mayor's communication last week that we're discussing. So I just wanted to tell everybody that, just,
Thanks for the information.
that is what it is.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Lastly, I entertain a motion to approve the request of mayor to transfer $15,000 from account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer, to account 1220100-532010, fire tuition and books to cover approved classes.
Second.
This particular item is contractual. It is what it is. You have firemen waiting that have taken courses that are in the contract. If they take them and they pass them, they're entitled to reimbursement. So this is contractual, it's $15,000. I didn't even question the chief about that. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Move to adjourn at 9:03.
Second.
Thank you.
Aye.
Huh?
All in favor?
Aye. I'm glad you call that, John.